All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our International Symposium. This is our last session of the day, examining student experiences in a virtual exchange. I'd like to introduce Greg Weaver, who is advisor for CSU Online and also a Ph.D. candidate in international education policy at the University of Maryland. Just to let everyone know, the session will be 50 minutes. And I think there will be some time for engagement and questions. You'll see both a chat and a Q&A box down below. Feel free to let's just use the chat. I think that's easier to navigate. And then also I'd like to encourage everyone to take the short survey after the end of the session to share some feedback about how we're doing today and what you'd like to see in the future. And with that, thank you for your attendance and your time today. And I'll turn it over to Greg.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me on the last session of today's International Symposium, Examining Student Experiences in a Virtual Exchange. And Sarah, thanks for that great introduction. So as Sarah was saying, my name is Greg Weaver. I've been working in virtual exchange as a practitioner for about 5 years now. I have overseen them, helped faculty design them, redesign them, publish on them. So I've done quite a bit within this space. So I'm really happy to be able to share a little bit about some student experiences within this. And then I also kind of have a little bit of a little interactive workshop towards the end of it. So if folks have questions throughout, feel free to just drop them in the chat. I'm always happy to answer them, but let's kind of get things kicked off. So things we're going to go over, we're going to talk about virtual exchange, background, the purpose of the study, talk about the frameworks, the methodology that led to it, and then, like I said, have the interaction discussion towards the end, which we can do through Q&A or through the chat. So background, the outbreak of the global pandemic, as well as xenophobic immigration policies within the US and abroad, have really caused the need for a re-examination on how universities internationalize, going beyond student mobility, both within study abroads as well as within international student enrollments. Virtual exchanges provide students with more equal and equitable opportunities to develop global competence and cultural skills, rather than if they were to go to abroad and have an immersive component. And a lot of this has to do with just access to the ability to study abroad with finances and other things along that nature. So one of the things that we look at within this is also kind of re-examining and re-exploring traditional internationalization methods and really questioning on, are these methods as effective as they have been with cultural barriers? And that could be things like immigration policy, immigration regulations that we're seeing, and then as well as a global pandemic that we've been facing for going on 2 years now. So these barriers have really called for a need for us to rethink on how we're educating college students within global competencies, and that's where virtual exchange comes into play. So a lot of folks might be thinking, what is virtual exchange? Well, virtual exchange is really this overarching term that refers to engagements of groups of learners. It could be within language, it could be within intercultural interaction, or it could be within collaboration from partners who are from other geographical locations, or could just have a different culture than their own. And then these interactions can be a part of integrated coursework, whether that is a full partnership, which is where you would have a class from one university, say CSU, meet with a class from another university, say in Germany, and then work on a course together. Or it could be having guest speakers and guest lecturers coming in and being a part of that class, giving cultural context as content experts through virtual webinars or other practices such as that nature. One of the really important things, though, that falls under this is that these do happen under the guidance of educators or expert facilitators. So they do need to be faculty-based or instructor-led within this. So as we talked about, why virtual exchanges? So we talked a little bit about this, but they really provide a more comprehensive internationalization at home, where students can have international experiences within their home institution rather than having to actually go and travel to a new country or abroad to have these experiences of growing their cross-cultural understanding. The other thing that they do is they really provide students with the ability to grow their global competency skills or their global mindset, and really prepares them to be a part of a global workforce that faces and helps to try to solve huge world social problems or wicked issues. And then it also fosters equity within its participants, not only the students, but also if you're thinking about it too from the educator standpoint, as far as the faculty members who are participating in this, designing these courses behind the scenes that the students don't see. So thinking about virtual exchanges in a global context, really a nice avenue for this is trying to think about it within the realm of the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN brought forth. So thinking if you are going to design a virtual exchange, what goes into it from the SDGs, or how are we meeting these larger problems, these larger global issues? So for the course that I'm going to talk about today and the student experiences within it, we really try to focus on quality education and giving students a comprehensive online international experience, as well as working in partnerships on a group project, so SDG number 4 and SDG 17, to try to think about how we're growing these large social justice issues. But depending on your discipline, depending on your background, you can really start to structure virtual exchanges to meet SDGs based off of your background. So it could take realistically any one of these approaches if you're planning on developing one. So for the purpose of the study for today, we're really looking at exploring the impact virtual exchanges had for global citizenship development. And it's really looking specifically at the college student experiences within a virtual exchange between the United States, or university in the United States and university in Hong Kong. The frameworks that guided this research are global citizenship framework, as well as the frameworks within virtual exchange. So when we're talking about virtual exchanges, another term that you might hear is a transnational classroom. So a transnational virtual exchange would be a virtual exchange that takes place between multiple countries that don't happen to be from the same one. So for the sites for this, it was a virtual exchange between the University of Maryland College Park, as well as Hong Kong Polytechnic University in Hong Kong. So the research question that we're asking is, how do students perceive the various components of virtual exchange programming contribute towards their development of global citizenship competencies? So within this, it took an interpretivist paradigm, and this allows for us to look at multiple realities or truths, which is really important when you're having students who are coming from multiple identities, multiple backgrounds, multiple cultures being in within this space. It is a qualitative case study. And then the positionality as the researcher within this, I was also a course instructor for this. So it was kind of interesting because there was a certain level of insider outsider positionality within this, being both an American within it, being also a student, but also having that level of privilege and power as an instructor and as an instructor in the course. And then data collection. So data collection took place through interviews with interviewing student participants within this class. It took place within classroom observations. And then it also took place with document analysis. So for the project, for our final project for this, we had our students do many autoethnographies through their journal and also through journaling throughout the semester. So students were really able to take a look about their experiences and reflect back on those experiences as they are taking place within this virtual exchange. Use purposeful sampling, and then, like I said, for the sites. So transcripts, data analysis, transcripts, this is an ongoing research process. So I am sharing part of my dissertation with you all, but transcripts are still going on, but they have been transcribed verbatim and have been uploaded into in vivo. Coding is utilizing initial coding and focus coding, and then really looking at the themes that emerge. So what I want to do now is share with you all some of the student experiences from this course before we kind of dive into thinking about virtual exchange on a much larger topic and kind of a more applied version. So Jameson shares with us, I really wanted an international experience, something that I was not able to do during my studies due to money. COVID also played a big impact in my want for taking a virtual exchange at UMD. In my opinion, this, referring to virtual exchanges, should be a requirement within the general education requirements at the university. So Jameson shared a lot within his interview about wanting to have more equitable opportunities for students and within the virtual exchange space, they really shared about how they felt like this could be a general education requirement for the university, looking at diversity efforts, but they really made the argument that it could really fall under any general education requirements. It just depends on how the faculty choose to internationalize their curriculum. Ibrahim shared, as we continue into the pandemic and move forward to hopefully a post-pandemic world, the use of virtual exchange classes will be a predominant and staple for education in the 21st century. With the intersection of globalization and push for hybrid learning being our reality, it's essential to provide the world with the tools to become better global citizens and what it means to be part of humankind. So this student was really forecasting kind of where they see virtual exchange happening and kind of how it's going to be the next step within how universities internationalize, and we're kind of sharing based off of their own experiences within it. Samantha shared, the class prioritized us understanding the culture of Hong Kong over the first couple of weeks and allowed us to really develop relationships with the people there. I found myself more and more interested in the history of Hong Kong, creating that personal connection that led me to discover a new interest and help develop my global citizenship further as a result. That connection has allowed me to expand my empathy for others and knowledge on how the experiences that I have and the things that I take for granted. So Samantha was really reflecting on that personal experience, that personal connection. They were also a political science major. So it was really interesting talking with her about her experiences within this space and kind of where she feels like that it could lead her for the future and help her develop the skills for her future. Margine stated, through this experience, I gained an insight about a culture very foreign to me, while also challenging my skills on cross-cultural competence, leadership, communication, and cooperation. As the digital age takes over, we must embrace the opportunity to bring the world's young minds to meet and work together to build sustainable purpose in an interconnected world. So once again, Margine is really focusing on that skill development that took place in order to solve greater issues. And then the last experience that I really want to share with you about the students within this space comes from, excuse me, Nancy. Nancy actually wrote a poem to cap her autoethnography, but I just want to share with you a few lines from it because I really think it sums it up really nice. What this transnational virtual class has brought me, I'm sorry, let me start that one over. What this transnational virtual class has taught me is that the world, we all belong. Apart, we are weak, but working together to create a more peaceful, sustainable, and fair society, we are strong. The time difference may be big and the plane ride may be long, but with developments in technology, it takes a quick Zoom call to reach Hong Kong. Classes like this are rare as a pearl. I am so happy to have learned all about global citizenship I could twirl. So yes, I'm a Jamaican national, international student, and a girl, but most of all, I'm a citizen of the world. So I think that this kind of really encapsulates what virtual exchanges can offer students, especially when we are facing such things as a global pandemic, have limited opportunities for student mobility due to finances, due to political strife, due to student mobility issues, due to equity. So virtual exchanges really try to create and promote student global competencies and learning within a space that they might not otherwise have. So some of the limitations of the study was restrictions. So being able to overcome, my co-instructors and I talked a lot about this, but being in a virtual environment, being able to observe the students and kind of what they're working in from a traditional classroom was a little bit different. And then finally was the final assignment was a little bit different between the students at the University of Maryland and Hong Kong Polytechnic University, where the students at Maryland reflected on their experience being within this class, created an autoethnography, where the Hong Kong Polytechnic University students did not. So it would be nice to have that comparability piece, but unfortunately we don't, but we can examine it from the lens of which the case is bounded, which is the University of Maryland global classrooms. So one of the questions you all are probably asking is like, how does this impact us here at Colorado State? And kind of what I want to shift the conversation to. So I think it really brings up questioning international partnerships and how we utilize and explore these international partnerships. It also talks and brings into question comprehensive internationalization, expansion of the field, being able to bring global perspectives to, realistically, any type of coursework that we do here at the university. And then there's also the opportunity for joint professional development. Something that I've been able to do to be a part of this is being able to publish with my colleagues, being able to develop new courses, being able to help other faculty develop new courses like this. So really the expansion of it. So one of the questions is, what can we all do, right? So this is kind of the interactive part of the webinar that I wanted to share with folks. And I'm going to drop a Google Doc link in here that is editable for folks. And I will share my screen so y'all can see it. But what I kind of wanted to spend some time do, even though we are in a webinar, is think about what it's like to design a virtual exchange and what goes into it. So it is editable. So everyone should have the ability to choose a slide and edit it. But if we all go to slide 2, which is also up on my screen, I kind of want to show you something that I think about and have faculty think about when they are trying to develop or thinking about or conceptualizing developing these courses. And this is something that I've used in the past. So for example, this is a course that I'm thinking about potentially developing as an example for the class: applied global citizenship in a virtual context as a virtual exchange. It could be an international studies upper division course. So starting to think about it on your own slide is starting to think about a current course if you're a faculty that you might teach, or if you're an advisor or administrator in a program that you're in, something that you feel like your course or your department could potentially offer within this space. And then just start to fill it out. So partnership, have you identified a partner? If not, who would you try to identify? Would it be a faculty member? Would it be working with the office, excuse me, the International Programs Office to try to identify different partnerships? Would it be NGOs? Would it be local businesses? What type of SDGs are you trying to achieve within this class? There's 17 of them, so take a look, review those for a second. Also, it's really important to think about who your target audience is. Do you have a captive audience? Is it something that is part of an AUCC here at CSU? Is it part of a minor? Is it part of a major requirement? Is it an elective? Is it a new program? What would you try to do to create and promote access within this space? Also, just kind of brain dump. Think about course activities, course descriptions, or learning outcomes. What are the things that you would want your students to achieve or have within being a part of this? What are some of the learning outcomes that you have? How do they fit within globalization or internationalization, right? What type of technology needs might you have? Canvas, utilizing the folks over at Tilt, video conferencing, messaging, scheduling, WhatsApp to communicate with international partners. And then I also think it's really important, as well as thinking about the type of engagement that you want within your virtual exchange. So is this an entire fully integrated course that's a semester-long partnership with another institution where you all are, say, utilizing concepts that might be familiar to one folks or might not be familiar to others? Is it going to be less of a full-on integration? Or is it just going to have guest speakers, which is completely fine, right? Bring in experts from other countries to be able to give cultural competencies. And then finally, think about the sustainability when you're thinking about or trying to conceptualize this. How does this program go beyond its inception, right? So if we're thinking about long-term change within globalization and comprehensive internationalization at home, how is this going to continue beyond the first year, the first semester inception of it? So if folks want to take a few minutes, we'll say give folks like 10 minutes or so to kind of come up, think of ideas. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. But pick a slide and just start going to town on it. Start thinking about it. Okay, and bring it back. So I also wanted to share just kind of like what folks were able to come up with in this pretty quick little session. I mean, for most of you, you're probably just introduced to this topic today, or it's fairly a recent idea. So I'm really interested to see kind of what folks came up with and how they might apply virtual exchange within their programs. So, and if folks want to add stuff, feel free, kind of ongoing. So looking at developing the value of emotional intelligence in the workplace, developing mindfulness techniques for success, super interesting. Looking at faculty here at CSU as a potential partner in the rhetoric and composition department. So either looking at potentially developing this as a part of the core curriculum, which is awesome, but also talking with the advisors, which I think is a really, really cool way to do it. Looking at enabling students to start thinking, yeah, looking at career development, absolutely, and especially focus development as well. Way cool. Yep. And then looking at some of the technologies here, Padlet is a great, great activity that works really, really nice within the session. Love it. So this one looks like the folks are still a little bit unsure on that one, which is fine. So looks like the person was still working on this one. So not really sure on what the technology they'd need, but they were looking at trying to develop a semester-long program, which is amazing. And then let's see, computer science freshman seminar, bringing in alumni from all over the world to address issues of gender equality. That's a great access. I really like being able to engage the faculty on that, especially from diverse backgrounds. I think that's amazing. And also having it be a part of the requirement. So it's really encouraged on the globalization aspects of it. I love it. And bringing in folks with different backgrounds, I think is great, especially utilizing it as a professional development ideology, your kind of tool of moving things out is amazing. Love it. Way cool. So already thinking about partnerships with Hong Kong University, awesome. Looking at infrastructure, SDG 9, and then also 11. One of the things I'll say about this, y'all, SDG 17, since this is partnerships trying to create these goals, everyone should have that on their slide, as well as quality education. Those are kind of two gimmies, but I also love that you are trying to think about incorporating more outside of it. That's amazing. Focusing on undergraduates, and then looking at access. So trying to capture students both inside the major or minor, or if not, thinking about students both inside and out. That's amazing. Trying to get everyone involved on campus and try to create that opportunity for all. I love it. Also love that you're starting to think about exploring different ideas as far as labor and policy, or laws and policies, really focusing on sustainability as a theme. That's amazing. Yeah, I think especially dealing with issues on sustainability is huge. And then I also like the idea of having that final form presentations across both departments. That's something that we did within this course, is having both departments really kind of focus on presentations, but also bringing in people from the campus community to be a part of those and kind of look at the panels and that kind of stuff and provide students with feedback. I think it's always a really, really cool opportunity. Looks like this one is, oh, way cool. So another first year experience course, and then having students pick a specific SDG topic to work around together, and then have a final project proposal on it. That's amazing. I love it. I love the project base behind it. I also really like about this one is trying to think about like who they could utilize on campus together, which is really, really cool. And then, yeah, awesome. Also looking at another one looks like partnering with Todd Santos, or I'm sorry, Toto Santos is another one on this. Global, yeah, business is a really, really big one that we have kind of seen a lot of virtual exchanges emerging kind of throughout, and looking at kind of it in the context of global business, transnational business. So a really, really good fit. Like I said, it could be really any topic. I also really like the idea of this one really kind of focusing on trying to think about how they could meet the AUCCs, right? Create a larger audience for this. And also developing this for students who don't have the ability to study abroad. But I would also say too, you could also develop these courses with thinking about like students who really have a global mindset and also who have the ability, power, and privilege to study abroad as well as within this, which is amazing and just kind of something to think about for everyone. I also really like the idea of bringing in guest lecturers from local businesses, is really creating like real world case studies is a really, really cool mindset on this. I really like this. Looks like a first graduate level course. So occupational therapy, research to practice, looking at one or two existing international partners that currently exist within the department. So really relying on the department's partnerships is amazing. And then student learning outcomes within occupational therapy, way cool. And then creating access for students to work together to understand qualitative research concepts that can inform practice. Be interesting to see that from a global perspective too, but focusing on cultural competency and humility as emerging practitioners is really, really important. Yeah, Canvas might not work for partnering institutions. It depends on how Canvas is set up. So that's something that you would definitely want to check with Tilt on. I know that's something that we have been able to create shells on for my course when I was at Maryland and partner with our institutional technologies team, but something that you definitely want to check with Tilt on. Yeah, this is awesome, y'all. So cool. Well, thank you so much for everyone for sharing and participating. That's amazing. So lastly, I just kind of want to open up to questions. Like, what questions kind of came up to folks like while they were a part of this? What are new mindsets, maybe some new ideologies that might have come up, or what questions might have existed after participating and trying to think about and brainstorm what your own virtual exchange might look like? And feel free to drop any questions that y'all might have in the chat. So Amy's asking, how was the time zone difference navigating in your current project? That is a great question that came across on both sides. So Hong Kong and the University of Maryland are, depending on the time of the year, opposite ends of the clock within an hour. So it was a challenge. Students on the University of Maryland side met on Fridays at from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. And students in Hong Kong met at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. So really, really kind of big challenge there that we saw. But also one of the things that super transparent in the marketing of the course within talking with the students, the first thing that comes out of our mouths as instructors are, you have to want to do this for it, but also real world application, right? So if you're working on an international project with international partners, time is going to be a part of one of the challenges that's going to come up, along with potentially cultural barriers, language barriers, that kind of stuff. So being able to also phrase it or apply it within a real world application was really, really helpful for students to kind of navigate that challenge, but definitely something that every single student came up with as a huge challenge. Sarah, this makes me very excited to help connect our faculty to our existing international partners for development. Absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, Sarah Olson, who is on one of the folks on here, she oversees international partnerships. So great resource and person to reach out to if you are trying to think about potential folks to connect to, or if you're looking for an international partner for potentially wanting to develop this type of course, great person to reach out to. Yeah, and then where do you see this type of collaboration making the most sense at CSU? So, or what's the lowest low-hanging fruit? I would say there's a tons of opportunities, and I would say it's really just kind of faculty reimagining their courses. I think that it could fit really nicely within AUCC courses, but it's really just faculty wanting to try to create a global connection or global vision for students. And a lot of this has to be faculty-led. So if students don't know that these opportunities are even a possibility, then they're not going to ask the faculty for them. If the faculty don't know they're a possibility, they're not going to ask Sarah to help with international partnerships. So I think a lot of it too is just really kind of creating like this knowledge and this, hey, this is a possibility, this can happen. But I would say, I mean, as far as like lowest hanging fruit, realistically, if every department were to look, they could probably find 3 or 4 courses that they could redevelop or that might be doing this or might be introducing international concepts, but this could elevate what that looks like. Yeah, Sarah also just added in the Stevenson Initiative. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the Stevenson Initiative is a giant overseer of virtual exchanges. So if you are looking at virtual exchange or wanting to develop virtual exchanges, they have great resources. So I definitely recommend it, and she put the link in there. Thank you so much for that. Danielle, I'm curious about integrating this into a model of a class that's already built out. For instance, if you're to add into a pre-existing course some sort of international speaker component, would that make the class a virtual exchange, or does the entire course need to have that as a foundation? No, I mean, virtual exchange could be anything from having guest speakers from another country come and give you like cultural context on your topic in that country. So when the question brought up of how do we adapt current courses, or like what's the low-hanging fruit, that right there is the low-hanging fruit. So bring in international partners to be able to come and talk to your classes about this is kind of the low-hanging fruit. But it doesn't have to be a fully integrated course. It doesn't have to be a computer science course at CSU partnering with a computer science course in Brazil and being able to have their students work on jointly on a partnership. If it becomes that in a fully integrated virtual exchange, that's great. But if you are able to bring in guest speakers and talk about the topics within the context of their countries, that's also great too. And that's also technically a virtual exchange. Chad, based on your research, have you seen institutions provide money incentives for faculty to support virtual exchanges? It really depends on the institution. It really depends on kind of the buy-in. Some institutions will provide not necessarily buyouts, but potentially like small startup like grants. Like when I say small, I mean like $2,000 to $3,000 to be able to bring this up. Some institutions will mostly have that go towards the development of the technology of it rather than say buying out a faculty time. This also brings into conversation of like, what does service, what does teaching look like go into for faculty who are up for tenure and promotion, right? So also having those kind of conversations. And does this play into service on a larger factor? I would say as well as that, a lot of faculty who participate in this also wind up publishing really innovative stuff on it with their partners. Also do really innovative presentation, really innovative teaching. So that's kind of one of those ways if you're trying to think about like, how do I buy out my time or that kind of thing, that can kind of play into it. Great question. So Jennifer asks, it seems like there's a lot of interest at virtual exchange here at CSU, but can you speak to the technical challenges that you've encountered? And then how is connecting students with another country in the classroom the same? Does this approach vary? Yeah, that's a great question. So technology wise, it can be a challenge. I was part of a research project recently that was a partnership between a university on the East Coast and a university in Iraq. So the connectivity that the university in Iraq was working on or with, the bandwidth wasn't as great. Also, the university was dealing with rolling blackouts in Baghdad. So being able to overcome some of those technical challenges have happened. I would say also the pandemic has kind of brought up other technical challenges as far as meeting from a face-to-face learning environment where you have it being in a physical classroom on, say, the Colorado State side, as well as whatever your partner institution is. And then the pandemic really turned it into fully integration within Zoom meetings. So everyone is in a Zoom window, has a face. I would say that kind of actually worked towards the benefit, though, of a lot of the virtual exchanges, because it really kind of took folks out of being faces in a large room and really to being able to connect within breakout rooms with their folks, being able to kind of have a more like level, equitable playing field with everyone. So I would say that's kind of a challenge that turned into an actual benefit. And then I would say too, is just like other ways that folks decide to incorporate different technologies. I mean, I know one of the things that one of the I'm assuming faculty members wrote about on their panel was talking about being able to integrate Canvas or not. And that really kind of goes back to like talking with your university or institution on what type of technologies can we share And then also reframing it on what type of technologies as a faculty member do I need to get caught up on that I might not necessarily have the competency or introduced to right now, right? Like probably this time 2 years ago, most folks weren't that familiar with Zoom, but now we are seeing more and more fluencies within it. So I also think it's also a growth opportunity as well. So being able to turn challenges into opportunities is kind of what I see a lot within it. But yeah, those are kind of the big things. So we have just a couple more minutes left, but I want to make sure if any folks have any other questions that I am around. So, and then I also wanted to share with y'all, if y'all are thinking about or have any questions about this, or if your department's thinking about it as well, like feel free to reach out. Like I said, this is something that I've done faculty trainings on. I have been in this space for a while. I publish on it. It's my area of interest, one of my key areas of research. So feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to have conversations beyond just today. I'm really happy that folks have an interest in this at Colorado State. So super exciting. And thank you all so much for taking almost an hour out of your day, especially at the end of the International Symposium today, and coming to talk and be able to participate on this.
Greg, thank you so much for such an engaging presentation. I've got lots of ideas just by being a participant, and I'm sure there are lots of others who are getting even more excited about virtual exchange and the opportunities that exist at CSU. So thank you so much for your presentation. To all the attendees, thank you so much for your time. There will be a short link to a survey that you'll see when the session ends today. And we have sessions continuing all day tomorrow and as well as Wednesday. So I just want to highlight a few. Our first session tomorrow starts at 9 a.m. and that is on what does the World Bank and CSU Extension have in common. And then I'd like to highlight our one of our keynote speakers tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m., Lulu Garcia Navarro. And then also on the 17th from 9 to 9:50 a.m., our plenary session is with Colleen Cipriani and Kathleen Fairfax in conversation. So those are 2 sessions not to miss. And Greg, thank you again for your time today and such a great presentation. So thank you, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you in other sessions throughout the week.